Good morning again, everybody. My name is Jamir Jumoke. I am the Pathway Home case manager. Obviously, it's going to be impossible for me to share my entire story with you in such a condensed time frame. So what I wanted to do was kind of just give you a quick overview of some of the highlights of my justice involvement and my journey as a person who is every day consistently striving to survive recidivism, right? I also want to preference that with the fact that what I really want to talk to you about and what I hope you get out of what I say in this conversation is that I really want to give you an inside view of the socialization and discrimination of young black males in society and the school system specifically. I always say that prison didn't rehabilitate me, but it did recalibrate me. So when you think about the definition of recalibration and you ask yourself, basically that means at some given point, the trajectory of your thoughts and your minds was altered by your situation, right? So because I can't go all the way back from the beginning with this 15 minutes, I'm gonna start in second grade because I am a product of the school to prison pipeline. I say that not necessarily proudly, but I also do say it proudly because I've been resilient enough to still thrive in spite of all the different circumstances that I experienced with that. So I think it's important for us to remember, like, for example, there are some decisions that's being made in some high places right now about different resources, and I'm speaking specifically to our CRCs that's in all of our community schools, right? And there's some decisions being made trying to equate what type of value they bring to the community and to the school system specifically. So when I was in second grade, I had the fortunate opportunity to have a teacher of color, a black teacher named Miss Brooks. I was in love with Miss Brooks. Like, I mean, literally in love with Miss Brooks. She was the most beautiful woman I ever seen in my life. I was convinced that we was getting married. The only problem with that is by the time I'd be able to kiss her, she'd probably be my grandmama age. So those plans were kind of deviated from the jump. However, the thing about Miss Brooks that stood out to me was that Miss Brooks was a very culturally competent teacher. She was very aware of my surroundings, my environment, my community, my neighborhood, all of the different variables and the things that I was carrying on my shoulders and bringing to school. There was times my mother raised me off an AFDC check. I don't know how many of y'all remember what that is exactly, but that was like maybe the equivalent of $237 a month. Wasn't a lot of money then, ain't a lot of money now. So there was nights that, we were food insecure, I guess that's the terminology they use. Ms. Brooks had an innate ability to recognize all of these different things. So when I come to class, she recognized that if I'm not paying attention, it's probably because I'm hungry. So she would go get me food, she would bring things in, she would sit me to the side and talk to me. And unlike a lot of other teachers that I encountered throughout my school experience, she would ask me how I was doing instead of telling me how I was doing. A lot of the other teachers that I encountered, they would tell me why I was acting the way I was, why I was being the way I was based off of whatever their assumption was, right? But she would ask you, how you doing? What's going on with you at home? So anyway, when I was in Ms. Brooks' class, academically, I was thriving. I was making straight. I mean, I don't know what that means in second grade, right? But I'm making straight A's, so I'm doing something right. I'm writing poetry. The poetry is being published in national magazines and all of that. Basically, what I'm trying to get you to understand is that my trajectory at that point was going in a great direction, in spite of the fact that even coming into that prior to my second grade year, I'm coming from a situation where I've been subjected to a lot of discrimination. And if you think about reentry and put reentry in context, essentially that's what it is. Discrimination is what we have to deal with every day while we out here. But a lot of times we talk about our kids and make assumptions about where they end up. but we don't spend a lot of time talking about how they got there. So even before having that experience with Ms. Brooks, you know, I had already been living in different sub-segments of my family dynamic where I was already experiencing discrimination, physical abuse. You know, I've been burned with cigarettes, beaten with all types of objects. We ain't got enough time to get into all of that, right? So my point is, I am the equivalent of the same student over at Williston who's walking in there, who's carrying all this trauma, and nobody has any idea why they're not paying attention, why they might be speaking out in class, or whatever the case is. Ms. Brooks was able to recognize that. However, after Ms. Brooks left, one of the other things Ms. Brooks was able to do was to shield me from the other people within the school system, whether it be the principals, the teachers, the coaches, or people that weren't culturally prepared to deal with the type of trauma that I had. So their response to my behavior, or their misinterpretation of my behavior, was always to label me. So after I left Ms. Brooks, I got introduced to another teacher who had no type of cultural competence and already had a generalization and a stigmatization of the community that I come from in my neighborhood specifically. So she already had deemed me as being somebody that was not going to succeed in life, just based off of the color of my skin and where I come from. My dialogue, my dialect, my hip hop culture, all of that, right? So then they introduced me to the IDP. Y'all know about the IDP, right? So now I'm introduced to the IDP. So now you got this school psychologist that comes in and does this IDP and does this evaluation on me. And from that evaluation, doesn't really take into consideration any of the things that I got going on home, the distractions. Obviously, there's nowhere on that paper for them to fill in the fact that I had to watch my mother get raped and beat. And, you know, I had to come home every day from different boyfriends, leaving, you know, crack cans in the trash can. I don't know how many people know about the crack cans with the Brillo and the ashes on it, but yeah, so that was 80s. Yeah, they more sophisticated smokers now. But anyway, so once I got that IDP, at that particular time I was deemed behaviorally and emotionally handicapped. So they called it BEH at that particular time. You know, in school we just call it like LD. And the bad class and all of that. Well, I spent from 3rd grade all the way till 5th grade, 3rd grade till 6th grade, immersed in those classes. Now, let me tell you some of the things that happened throughout that process. Throughout that process, there was a time where I only went to school for 1 hour a day. This was sanctioned by the county. So I would go into school. They would sit me at a desk, they would put a coloring book right there, a puzzle book, and they would tell me, just keep yourself busy until that black hand hit the 12 and we can get you up out of here. So I'm in there. Obviously, I don't know how to do word puzzles and all of that, so I become quite deviant, and I'm looking into things to do to entertain myself for my hour. So I got in a lot of trouble, and that ultimately resulted in me having a school schedule that went like this. Monday, I get to school. By lunchtime, I get a 5-day suspension. I come back the next Monday, I do the exact same thing again, over and over, over and over. Now, this is just what's going on in school, and everybody knows that school is the #1 tool of socialization for your children because you spend more time at school than you spend at home. So a lot of times our communities get demonized for being the people or being the environment to change the trajectory of our children based on what's going on out there. But the reality of that is that I barely even see the people where I live at until I get home after school. So most of what was done to me and what was programmed in my mind happened there. And what happened was all of my teachers from 3rd grade all the way till 7th grade told me that I never amount to nothing, I never be nothing. Obviously, I had my encounters and my run-ins with the resource officers. That put me in the juvenile justice system. By the time I was 11 years old, because of the IDP and the things that were being placed on me on paper and that following me around, I couldn't just have a regular bad day. Like, you know what I mean? I couldn't be like the other kids and just be disgruntled because I'm frustrated with the work or whatever. Anything that I did was magnified and exaggerated to the fullest extent, to where every time I do anything, I ain't ask you nothing. Every time I went to the principal office, it led to suspension, it led to the juvenile court system, or even more so, it led to corporal punishment. I can remember quite vividly one time the principal at the school really had it out for me. He was hell-bent on just me going to jail, because that's where he thought I wanted to be. And I remember my mama walking in to the office one day, and they wanted her to let them paddle me. But she didn't feel comfortable with it because this had been like an ongoing thing where she always coming up there, and she like, you can't be the only one here in the school that's getting in all this trouble. So anyway, the lady ended up telling her, if you don't let us paddle him, then we're gonna put him out of school. You know, in our community, the last thing we want to do is be talking to any social workers about why our kids not in school, because you run the risk of losing custody of your children. So she had to stand there and basically watch them beat me. The lady that beat me was a tennis player. I can't make this up. Her swing was real Venus-like. And when she paddled me, all the papers on her desk flew off onto the floor. Right? My mother is sitting there crying. And I'm watching my mother. I'm hurting, obviously, because I'm the one getting the paddling. But for me, it was more excruciating watching my mother's sense of helplessness and how she had no power and no control over, you know, the ordeal of my situation. And I don't know how many of you, do you believe that resistance is a natural response to oppression? So even as a child, I felt the same way. So at that particular point, my resistance became my deviance. First thing I did after that happened, vandalize the school. Spray paint. I wrote some very derogatory stuff that I probably shouldn't have been saying at that age. And from there, into the juvenile court system. But before I could even completely get immersed in that, my IDP and my paper trail led me to being introduced to the mental health system. So obviously they gave me a diagnosis of being behaviorally emotionally handicapped, bipolar, anti-authority, a whole bunch of other stuff. So now I'm sent to Bryn Mawr Hospital. So now I'm in a psychological clinical setting, right? But just 2 days ago, I was just in school. Now I'm being subjected to people that really do have mental health issues. And I'm trying to figure out how to adapt within that environment, because I ain't never been around people with schizophrenia and all of that kind of stuff going on. So where I'm from, the only way I know how to survive is these. So I'm in there banging it out with these people that's Thorazine strong. And yeah, and I already wasn't big as it is. I've been little my whole life, well, till now, but anyway, so that's me at 11 years old in Bryn Mawr Hospital after already experiencing and all of that. My mother ends up having a nervous breakdown. Because again, like I said, she's going through her own trauma from her own experiences, being in the military, being raped, you know, being sexually assaulted by her commanding officers and all kinds of stuff. So she has a nervous breakdown. Then from there, I end up going to Cherry Hospital. So I had another situation in school where they ended up sending me to Cherry Hospital. Now let me say, I went to Brunswick Hospital too, across the bridge. I actually fell in love with this Lumberton girl who, when I was 13, never mind, I ain't gonna go in there. She broke my heart because when she left, I stayed a little bit longer just so I could stay with her. And then it was time for her to go. She just got up and left. But anyway, I went there. I ended up at Cherry Hospital. Now, Cherry Hospital, for those of you that know, is the state psychiatric hospital. So this the big boys, per se. It's like the difference between the county jail and prison, you might as well say. And if you see, there's a lot of parallels between the two, because what I'm trying to get y'all to understand is I'm already being socialized to be a part of the justice system. Because it's the exact same thing in a lot of ways. So I'm in there. Their response to any type of questioning authority or disgruntled complaints or whatever is to strap you down, put you in the padded room, beat the hell out you, stab you in the butt with a needle with some Thorazine to sedate you, pardon me. And now I'm in there banging it out with other guys that's super crazy, I'm sorry, but some of them was. So again, this becomes my natural response to any type of adversity is aggression, right? So I'm going through that. I get out of, the psychiatrist comes to see me and he says, and I will tip my hat to him because at least he did practice some kind of professional integrity. He was like, man, ain't nothing wrong with you, you just bad. He said, crazy people don't know what they doing. He said, you know exactly what you doing. I said, you right, I do. But I ain't gonna do it no more if I got to come back here. So anyway, I get out of there. Shortly after that, fully immersed in the streets, you know, start selling drugs, start robbing people. By the time I'm 15, I'm living in Kinston, North Carolina. I'm trapping for some Dominicans. I'm still young. I worked the third shift because we had shifts, so I worked the third shift, and I was having a problem staying up. And the Dominicans don't be playing about their money. So if you come up, the count come up short, they gonna break your hand, they gonna do something until the ultimate penalty take place. So I was having a hard time staying up. Sometimes the count was off or whatever the case is. So I met this girl who was older than me, and the girl came and she introduced me to the opposite of melatonin. It's called cocaine. It's a hell of a drug, Charlie Murphy. So anyway, I started using powder cocaine as a means to stay up throughout the course of the night, but that gradually turned into an addiction that I wasn't even aware was an addiction, because that was just a part of the social norm. You know, in my community, we party, we drink, we smoke, we toot, but we ain't drug addicts though. So that ultimately led me into getting into even more trouble. And then let me back up. So after, say, 6th grade, when I'm going through that every week suspension thing, going to school 1 hour a day, I went to every school in Onslow County, every middle school. There ain't one that I didn't go to, and I was suspended and expelled from all of them. So that ultimately led me to being, I don't know how many of y'all remember Willie M? Do anybody? I know Michelle remember. So Willie M, that we can have a whole nother story about that. So now I'm designated Willie M. Now the good thing about Willie M, I will say, is that because I was Willie M, they could not put me in training school. So that for me, that was a good thing, because for most of us, that's our introduction to jail and prison is I already been to the detention center, but training school is usually that first introduction to the system. So I didn't have to go through that. However, because they didn't have that option and they had this paper trail following me all the way back from the IDP, again, every time I got in trouble, they automatically said, well, let's send them to some kind of treatment facility. So I went from being in a situation at school to when I got to, ironically enough, I was in detention, in the detention center on Juvenile Road. This woman came to see me, and told me that she was going to get me out of there and she was going to be my foster mother and that she was going to make sure that I never had to go through this again. That woman's name was Miss Cookie, who is actually Iris's mama. Yeah. So just so y'all know, Iris is one of our co-workers here. She shared her story, I think, last week. And ironically enough, we had the turkey giveaway in November. And that was the first time, like I had seen her before, but couldn't figure it out. So we actually had a reunification at the thing. So anyway, because I know I'm way over 15 minutes. All right. So anyway, I go to Miss Cookie house. Miss Cookie is working at Virgo. She was working with like the bad class or whatever. But I stay with them. We living in Walnut Hills. I seen a lot of stuff even while I was out there, because at that particular time, Walnut Hills and Creekwood was beefing real bad. So I remember, like, right across the street, this dude from Walnut Hills shot this boy from Creekwood in the face. And I seen it, you know what I'm saying? So again, this is the type of stuff that I'm seeing and experiencing. That situation didn't work out because I was going to I was going to Williston. And back then, light-skinned guys were still kind of in, you know what I mean? I ain't gonna hold you, like, so, you know, I hit the campus, I'm hollering at everything, you know what I'm saying? So they running down on me, they like, yo, you got the green eyes and the good hair and all that, so, hey, I'm soaking it all up, right? I'm the new kid on the block, all the girls calling my phone. But the problem is, them girls belong to Gervais. Right. So that became an issue, to say the least. So damn near every day, damn near every day at Williston consisted of me having to fight to prove my love. So, oh my God. Needless to say, I was outnumbered. I'm going to Skater's Choice, I gotta fight. I'm going to Dottie's, I gotta fight. We already got to break the, y'all know the connotation when it comes with the light-skinned pretty boys and all that. So anyway, I ended up, going to, my response to the situation, because the tension was getting thick, was to bring some weapons to school. Iris told on me. She told her. I messed with her about it too. But she told my foster mother about it. They informed the officers, and then from there I was expelled, removed from the school, and sent to another foster home in Goldsboro. When I get to the foster home in Goldsboro, it's going good. But when I get everything within the home is a perfect setting, loving family and all of that. The only issue that I had is once I got to school, because I came back into the same type of situation with the same type of people, and then I ended up in more trouble. And then from there, my juvenile probation officer sent me to Nova, which is a group home in Lenoir County. That place is horrible. I'm sorry, and I don't want to say it out loud like that, but I'm gonna tell y'all can edit it out if y'all want to, but I've seen staff members have sex with the clients in there. I've seen staff members stomp clients out in Timberlands and leave the boot prints on their face. So this is the type of environment that I'm in. I get out of there. They try to hold me until, they wanted to hold me till I was 18, but my mama came and was fighting for me. So when my mom came to check me out of the facility because of all the abuse and the things that was going on, they actually took custody from my mother to prevent her from being able to check me out. So there was a long, drawn-out process where she had to fight to get me back in order to get me out of there. But by the time I got out of there, the damage was already done. When I got out of there, that's when I hit the streets full time. That's when I started pumping for the Dominicans. That's when I started, developing a drug addiction that I wasn't necessarily aware until way years later was an addiction. I went from there, then I went to, I did my first stint in prison when I was like 16, 17. I still remember it very vividly because the first day that I was there, when I was in the gym, I can recall a guy attempting to attack another inmate, but I thought he was coming for me because I was looking at my peripheral, but he hit the guy with like a 30-pound dumbbell and smashed the side of his face in. Then he stood over him and he flicked his eye and told him, "Look at you now." So I'm a child. I mean, I think I'm tough and all that, don't get me wrong, but I'm still a child. So this is what I'm seeing. This is my introduction to prison. Every day, you want to know what it's really like. And these are young people, because again, I'm 16, so we talking about high rise. You know what I'm talking about tomorrow. So we talking about high rise. So we talking about you could be somebody who, one of these young men who work with our CRCs or whatever, can get an IDP put on them, get mislabeled, find himself in there for a shoplifting charge. Now every day that young man that's in there on a shoplifting charge has to navigate that walk to the canteen when he got to get on that elevator, and you put all your stuff in your shirt, you stuff it up like that, you put your back to the door. The mom know what I'm talking about? Put your back to the door, because them boys, what they about to do, they about to take that folder and throw it over the camera. And when you see them throw it over the camera, they finna beat the brakes off you, take all your stuff and violate you. I don't care who you are coming into that situation. Once you in the situation, adapt, survive, or be preyed upon like the weak. That's the reality. So again, this is training me for my natural response to any type of adversity to be aggression, to be resistance. So I go through that, get out of there, not too long, I'm right back in there again. 2 weeks before I'm about to max out, before I'm about to go home on my minimum, this big old dude, he big too. I told you now, I just now got big, y'all, I promise. And I'm working on it. But we in the day room, and the dude say, I don't even remember exactly what we was talking about or what we was arguing about or whatever the case is, but the dude said, "You can't see me." That don't seem like much, right? It's a lot. Because now I'm in front of all these other people in here, and if I don't say something or if I don't respond to the situation, then they gonna interpret it as, me being weak. And I can't be weak. So what's my response? 2 weeks before I go home. Never had a visit while I was in prison, ever. My aunt, my grandmom and them was coming to see me right before I left. By the time they got there, I was in segregation because I took a razor blade, a makeshift razor blade, and cut the boy up pretty bad. I could have got a life sentence behind that, or at least significantly more time, right? Come out of there, luckily, I come home, find myself immersed into the same type of circumstances and situations, which ultimately led to where I was, doing the same thing, one foot in, one foot out, selling drugs and all of that, robbing people, doing what I felt necessary for survival, because obviously I couldn't get a job because of my record and things of that nature. And that led me to 2000 and, I'm fast forwarding real fast, 2007, which is when I got married, and which is the year that I decided to change my life completely. That happened by the way of actually being on the run for 5 years for a crack charge in Guilford County, which I was absconding from. And when I got to Wilmington with my wife and my family living on 6th and Worcester, right in front of the crack house, I wanted to change my life over, but I knew I had something, in the rear, hovering over my shoulders. So I did the one thing that I've never done in my entire life. I turned myself in. So now I'm gaining emotional intelligence without even realizing it. And this is what is imperative for our children in these school systems to be getting early on, introduced to emotional intelligence, emotional regulation, all the things that our CRCs already do, right? So anyway, after that situation, I made a decision that I was going to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. I have very revolutionary roots. That's a whole nother video. But I for a long time I was very radical in my perspective. So when I came out, one of the things that dawned on me was like, I'm very revolutionary in the sense of fighting against the status quo, fighting against the system, calling out discriminations and stigma and things of that nature, especially when it's dealing with my community and justice-involved people in general. But what I failed to realize in that moment, that I was doing just as much a disservice to my community that I said that I was trying to protect, because I was selling drugs to pregnant women. You know what I mean? I was womanizing females and doing a lot of stuff. A lot of the things that you've heard from my female counterparts and stuff, we've all played a role in that in some capacity. It might not have been as, you know, the intentional abuser or whatever the case is, but it's all up in the same spider web, right? So I said, I'm gonna be a part of the solution and not be part of the problem. So how am I gonna be part of the solution? I'm just a felon. Nobody ain't gonna hire me. I don't know what to do other than rob people and sell drugs. And I'm probably don't have the right attitude to work at Burger King, because I had a job at Wendy's for 2 weeks, and that's all that lasted. So I decided to commit myself to my education, and the reason that I'm telling you this is because, again, I'm bringing it all back in the context of what our CRCs do and the importance of education and exposing that to our children early, right? Because education became my saving grace. I got out, I dropped out of school in the 7th grade. Thankfully, my mother did instill literacy into me at an early age, so I always was an avid reader. So that helped me supplement the traditional education that I didn't get in the school system, and then I kind of packaged that with my street smarts, and that's how I was able to maintain myself. Got out, went to the Cape Fear Literacy Council, got my GED in 2 years. From there, went on to work at different organizations, went into, I say, thrusted into the limelight of what people deem community leadership. It's all new to me because I was just standing on the street corner not too long ago. Now I'm in a position of authority or leadership and trying to figure all that out, still with all this unresolved trauma that I still haven't addressed. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to mask it. I'm trying to put on the armor of accomplishment in order to not deal with the things that I hadn't dealt with yet. So a lot of those same patterns that I had in the streets started showing up in my professional life, because I'm petty at times. I hold a grudge. I don't like nobody talking to me any kind of way. If I'm doing something and other people have an opinion on what I'm doing, or I feel like they hating or whatever the case is, I was having a tendency of focusing too much attention on what other people were saying. But why is that? Because my whole life, people have been telling me what I am, what I ain't, what I can do, what I can't do. And here's more people saying the same thing, but I'm all right now. I ain't doing no crime. I got a good job. I ain't have a nice car then, but I was straight though. But anyway, I say all that to say what I found from that entire experience is that regardless of the accomplishments, I went, got my GED, went to Cape Fear College, became the student government president, went to Capitol Hill, spoke on Capitol Hill in Washington. I've done, I don't know how many speaking engagements. I don't know how many organizations I've been involved with, from here to South Carolina all the way to Iowa. Rubbed shoulders with the prestigious politicians and power move makers and all of that. But at the end of the day, I'm still a felon. That's the reality that I came to. Because once I left Wilmington and went other places, Charlotte and otherwise, and went to go apply for a house or apply for a job and didn't have the luxury of having a reference letter from somebody that they knew, I had to go through the exact same process as everybody else, regardless of all the accolades and accomplishments and everything that I have. So what that means is we have to be diligent about consistently creating an ecosystem that's specific to our children, so that when they do get in the latter years, hopefully not justice involvement, but when they do get in the latter years of their journey, that they have somebody receive them the same way they received them early on. So I pray if y'all don't get nothing out of what I said, because if you want the rest, you're going to have to buy the book, and I'll send you the Amazon link. But I hope that if you don't get anything out of my conversation today, I hope that you take away that when it comes time for these decisions to be made about kids that was just like me, because I feel like, just feeling the energy in this room, especially all you mothers in here, that if y'all had the opportunity to interject on my behalf and shield me from that experience, y'all would have. You have that opportunity right now. So when we get in these county commissioner meetings, these city council meetings, and they start school board meetings, and they start talking about how to equate the value of what LINC does at CRC and in the schools, I want y'all to think about this. And I want y'all to make sure that y'all advocate for our children so that they have a voice, so they don't end up in a situation like me. When y'all asked me what I wanted to call this, I said LINC Unmuted. And the reason I said that is because a lot of voices from justice involvement don't have a voice. So this was our opportunity to let people know just how complex and deep this justice involvement thing goes. There's a lot of generalizations. Everybody's story not the same. The mom's story not my story. The white story not my story. They have a lot of similarities, but it touches every aspect of our community. And I don't care if it's our community. Our community is an extension of y'all community and they community. So when it come time to have them conversations, do not sit idle in that seat and not raise your hand and stand up and speak on the behalf of these children that can't defend themselves. Thank you for letting me share.